The trading station was old and tired. It floated in the darkness of space near a dying red star. The metal walls were stained with years of use. The air always smelled like engine oil and alien spices. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds came here to trade, to work, and to survive. Park had worked on this station for 3 years. He was 32 years old, average height, with tired eyes and rough hands. Back on Earth, he had been nobody special. Here in space, he was even less. Just another human hauling cargo from one bay to another. Humans were new to the galaxy. Only 50 years ago, they had made first contact with alien life. Now they scattered across the stars, taking whatever jobs they could find. Most aliens saw humans as weak and short-lived. They tolerated them as cheap labor, nothing more. Did not mind. He woke up early, moved heavy containers, and went to sleep late. Every month he sent credits back to Earth. His younger sister was studying medicine. She was smart, much smarter than him. He wanted to give her a better life than the one he had chosen. That evening was finishing his shift in Cargo Bay 7. The bay was quiet. Most workers had already gone to eat dinner or drink at the station bars. Only the hum of machines and the distant rumble of ships kept him company. He was checking his list when he heard a small sound. It was soft, almost nothing, but had learned to pay attention to small sounds. On a space station, small sounds could mean big problems. He walked slowly between the tall stacks of containers. The lights above flickered. They always flickered in this part of the station. Management never fixed anything unless it was about to explode. Behind a pile of waste containers, he found her. She was a child, could tell that much even though she was not human. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes were large and silver, shining even in the dim light. Small ridges ran along her temples and disappeared into her white hair. She was thin, too thin, and she was shaking. Knew what species she was. He had seen a few of them on the station before. They were known for being telepathic, sensitive to emotions. They were also known for being physically weak. A child alone on a trading station was a dangerous thing. The girl looked up at him with those silver eyes. Fear filled them completely. She pressed herself harder against the wall, trying to disappear. Stopped walking. He held up his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Hey," he said softly, "it is okay. I am not going to hurt you." The girl did not answer. She just kept staring at him, trembling like a leaf in wind. Lowered himself to one knee. He made himself smaller, less threatening. "My name is, what is your name?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she spoke. "Lyra." Lyra repeated gently. "That is a pretty name. Are you lost, Lyra? Where is your family?" Before the girl could answer, heavy footsteps echoed through the cargo bay. Turned his head. 3 figures emerged from the shadows between the containers. They were. Felt his stomach drop. Everyone on the station knew they were massive creatures covered in dark green scales. Their eyes were yellow and cold like a reptile. They stood over 2 meters tall and had claws that could cut through metal. They ran the illegal operations on the station. Drugs, weapons, trafficking. If something bad happened they were usually behind it. The leader was the worst of them. His name was. A thick scar ran across his face, splitting his lip and revealing sharp teeth beneath. He looked at the child with the expression of someone looking at insects. "Step away from the girl, human," said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding rocks. Stood up slowly. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. "What do you want with her?" Laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "That is not your concern. The child is collateral. Her family owes a debt. She comes with us." Looked back at Lyra. The girl was crying now, silent tears running down her blue cheeks. She was so small, so afraid. He thought about his sister. He thought about how scared she had been when their parents died and left them alone. He thought about how he had promised to always protect her. Lyra was not his sister. She was not even human, but she was a child and she was terrified and these monsters wanted to take her. Stepped in front of her. No, he said. Stopped laughing, his yellow eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said no. His voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. She is not going anywhere with you. The three looked at each other. Then they laughed again, louder this time. You stepped closer. He was so much bigger than his shadow covered the human completely. You are going to stop us, a weak little human. Did not move. Behind him, he could hear Lyra's quick breathing. He could feel her small hand grab the back of his jacket, holding on like he was the only safe thing in the universe. Maybe he was. I am not moving, said quietly. Smile disappeared. His eyes turned cold and cruel. Then you will die. The first blow came fast. Did not even see it. He only felt the explosion of pain in his chest as fist connected with his ribs. The force lifted him off his feet and threw him backward. He crashed into the containers and fell to the ground. Everything hurt. He could not breathe. He tasted blood in his mouth. But behind him, Lyra screamed. And Park got back up. Stood on shaking legs. His ribs screamed with pain. Every breath felt like fire in his chest. Blood dripped from his split lip and fell to the metal floor in small red drops. The three stared at him. They could not believe what they were seeing. Tilted his head like a predator studying strange prey. You got up, he said slowly. There was confusion in his voice. Why did you get up? Wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. He stepped in front of Lyra again, blocking her from their view. His legs wanted to collapse. His body wanted to give up, but he forced himself to stand. I told you, he said. His voice was rough with pain. She is not going with you. His confusion turned to anger. His scales seemed to darken and his yellow eyes burned with rage. No one refused no one stood up to them, especially not a weak, short-lived human. Break him, commanded his two companions. They moved fast. The first grabbed by the throat and lifted him off the ground, kicked uselessly in the air. He could not breathe. Black spots danced in his vision. Then the slammed him down onto the hard floor. Pain exploded through his back. He heard something crack, maybe a rib, maybe something worse. The second kicked him in the side and he felt more bones break. He tried to get up. His arms pushed against the floor. His muscles screamed in protest, but he managed to lift himself to his hands and knees. Another kick sent him rolling across the floor. He crashed into a container and lay there, gasping for air that would not come. Behind him, Lyra was sobbing. Stop, please stop, leave him alone. But they did not stop. Walked over slowly. He looked down at with disgust and something that might have been curiosity. You are still trying to get up. Why? You cannot win. You must know this. Coughed. Blood came out with the cough, bright red against the gray floor. His left arm hung wrong. It was broken, he was sure. The pain was so great that his vision kept going white. But he thought of Lyra's silver eyes filled with tears. He thought of her small hand holding his jacket. He thought of how afraid she was, how alone, how helpless. He had felt helpless once, when his parents died, when his sister cried every night, when the world seemed too big and too cruel and too uncaring. No child should feel that way, not if he could stop it. Pushed himself up again. It took everything he had. Every muscle shook, every bone ached. But he rose to his knees, then to one foot, then to both feet. He stood between thee and the child. Stared at him. For the first time, something other than cruelty appeared in his yellow eyes, something that looked almost like fear. What are you? Whispered. Did not answer. He could barely think through the pain. He just stood there, bleeding and broken, refusing to fall. The beating continued. They hit him again and again. They broke his nose. They cracked his skull against the floor. They damaged something inside him that made breathing feel like drowning. 7 minutes. 7 endless minutes of pain. But every time fell, he got back up. Every time they knocked him down, he rose again. He did not fight back. He was not strong enough for that. He did not try to run. He would never leave the child behind. He just stood there taking the punishment, refusing to move aside. They did not understand. In their world, the weak gave up. The weak surrendered. The weak begged for mercy and crawled away. That was the natural order of things. But did not beg. He did not surrender. He did not crawl. He endured. Finally, lights flashed at the entrance of the cargo bay. Alarm sounds filled the air. Station security had arrived. Someone must have heard the noise and called for help. Looked toward the entrance, then back at. The human was barely standing now. Blood covered his face. One eye was swollen shut. His arm hung limp and useless. He was shaking so badly that he should have fallen 10 times over. But he was still standing. "This is not over," hissed. He gestured to his companions. "We go now." The three disappeared into the shadows between the containers. By the time security arrived, they were gone. Watched them go. His vision was getting dark around the edges. His legs finally gave up. He collapsed to the floor, unable to hold himself any longer. Small hands touched his face. Lyra was kneeling beside him, her tears falling onto his cheeks. "Why?" she cried. "Why did you do that? You did not even know me. Why?" Tried to smile, but his face hurt too much. He managed to squeeze her hand weakly with his unbroken arm. "Because you were scared," he whispered. "Because you were small, because someone had to." His eyes closed. The darkness took him. The last thing he heard was Lyra screaming for help, her small voice echoing through the cargo bay. The security officers found them like that. A broken human man lying in a pool of his own blood. A crying alien child holding his hand and begging him to wake up. They called for medical help immediately. The doctors said later that should have died. His injuries were too severe. He had lost too much blood. His body had taken too much damage. But somehow his heart kept beating. Somehow he held on. The doctors did not understand. They did not know what humans were capable of when they had something to protect. They did not know that the human body could push beyond its limits when the human heart demanded it. Park survived that night. And somewhere in the stars, a mother was coming. Opened his eyes slowly. Everything was white. For a moment he thought he was dead. Then the pain came and he knew he was still alive. Dead people did not hurt this much. He was lying in a bed that was soft and warm. The room around him was beautiful. Clean white walls, gentle blue lights. Machines hummed quietly beside him, filling his body with medicine and healing energy. This was not the station medical center. That place was dirty and crowded and smelled like old bandages. This place was something else entirely. He tried to move, but his body refused. Everything was heavy. His left arm was wrapped in a special healing cast. Bandages covered his chest and face. He could only see from one eye. The other was still swollen shut. "You are awake." The voice came from across the room. It was soft and musical, like wind through silver bells. Turned his head slowly and saw her. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She was tall and beautiful in a way that made his breath stop. Her skin was pale blue like Lyra's, but darker, like the deep ocean. Her hair was long and white, falling down her back like a waterfall of moonlight. When she turned to face him, her silver eyes held centuries of wisdom and pain. She was, and she looked like Lyra. "You are the mother," said. His voice was rough and weak. The woman walked toward him slowly. Her movements were graceful, almost floating. She wore a long dress made of fabric that seemed to shimmer and change color as she moved. Everything about her spoke of power and wealth and importance. "My name is," she said. She stopped beside his bed and looked down at him. "That is not my true name. My true name cannot be spoken by human tongues, but you may call me." Tried to sit up. The pain pushed him back down. "Lyra, is she okay? Is she safe?" Something changed in Silver eyes. A softness appeared, a warmth that had not been there before. "She is safe because of you." She sat down in a chair beside his bed. For a long moment, she simply studied him. Her gaze was intense, as if she was looking at something beyond his broken body. "I am what my people call a," she said quietly. "I can feel the emotions of others. I can see the truth in their hearts. When I touched your mind, I expected to find many things: greed, pride, expectation of reward. That is what most beings feel when they do seemingly kind things." She paused. Her silver eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "I found none of those things in you, only a simple, stubborn belief. Children should be protected. That was all, nothing more, nothing less." Did not know what to say. He had not done anything special. He had just done what felt right. "I have lived for 400 years, continued. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I have traveled across galaxies. I have met thousands of beings from hundreds of species. I have never encountered anything like you." She reached out and gently touched his unbroken hand. Her fingers were cool and soft. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do it? You did not know my daughter. You did not know me. You had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Why did you nearly die for a stranger?" Thought about the question. He thought about Lyra's silver eyes filled with fear. He thought about her small body trembling behind the containers. He thought about his sister and how scared she had been when they lost their parents. "She was scared," he said simply. "She was small, she was alone. What else was I supposed to do?" Stared at him. Her silver eyes searched his face, his soul. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. It was a small smile, gentle and sad and beautiful. "What else were you supposed to do?" she repeated softly, as if there was no other choice, as if protecting a child you did not know was the only possible action. She stood up and walked back to the window. The stars outside glittered like diamonds scattered across black cloth. "The who attacked you work for a criminal organization," she explained. "They claimed my family owed them a debt. It was a lie. They wanted to kidnap my daughter and use her against me. A child is valuable. Many would pay fortunes to control one." Her hands tightened into fists. "I was far away when I felt Lyra's fear through our bond. I came as fast as I could. I expected to find my daughter dead or taken. I expected to find only grief waiting for me." She turned back to face. "Instead, I found a broken human who had given his body to protect what I love most in all the universe." Felt uncomfortable under her intense gaze. "I did not do much. I could not even fight them. I just stood there and got beaten." "You stood," said firmly. "That is what matters. You stood when anyone else would have run. You endured when anyone else would have fallen. You refused to move when moving would have saved your life." She walked back to his bed and looked down at him, with an expression he could not read. "My people have a belief," she said. "When someone saves a life, they become responsible for that life. They become connected to it forever. It is a sacred bond, stronger than blood, stronger than time." Felt his heart beat faster. "What are you saying?" Placed her hand over his heart. Her touch was warm now, pulsing with strange energy. "I am saying that you saved my daughter, Park. And now, whether you want it or not, you belong to us." Her silver eyes burned with an intensity that made him shiver. "I am going to keep you," she said softly, "forever." The news spread through the station like fire. A human had been claimed by not just any, but of the Silver House, one of the most powerful families in the core systems. It was impossible. It was unheard of. It was the only thing anyone could talk about. Lay in his healing bed and listened to the whispers. Nurses came and went, stealing glances at him like he was some strange creature in a cage. Doctors checked his wounds and shook their heads in amazement that he was still alive. Everyone wanted to see the human who had done the impossible. He did not feel special. He just felt tired and confused. "You cannot be serious," he said to when she visited him that afternoon. His body was healing faster now thanks to the advanced medicine. He could sit up and speak without too much pain. I am nobody. I am a cargo hauler. I carry boxes for a living. Sat in her usual chair beside his bed. She had visited every day since he woke up. Sometimes she brought Lyra, who would climb onto the bed and hold his hand and tell him stories about her home world. Other times she came alone, and they would talk for hours about everything and nothing. "You are not nobody," said calmly. "You are the man who saved my daughter. That does not make me important. That does not make me worthy of whatever this bond thing is." Tilted her head, studying him with those ancient silver eyes. "You truly do not understand, do you? You have no idea what you did." Shook his head. "I stood in front of some criminals. I got beaten badly. That is all." "That is not all." Leaned forward. "Park, they are one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They have killed beings far stronger than you without breaking a sweat. When they saw you standing in their way, they expected you to run. When you did not run, they expected you to fall after the first hit. When you did not fall, they expected you to beg." Her voice grew intense. "You did none of those things. You stood up again and again. You took punishment that would have killed most beings. You refused to surrender even when surrender would have saved your life. Do you know what that looks like to the rest of the galaxy?" Was silent. "It looks like madness," continued. "It looks like something impossible. It looks like a species that does not know the meaning of defeat." She smiled slightly. "It looks like something wonderful." The door opened before could respond. Lyra ran in, her silver eyes bright with joy. She was wearing a pretty blue dress and her white hair was tied in braids. She looked healthy and happy, nothing like the terrified child hiding behind containers. She climbed onto his bed carefully, mindful of his injuries. "Mother said you are getting better. She said you can walk soon." Felt his heart warm at her smile. "That is right. The doctors say I will be standing in a few days." Lyra clapped her hands together. "Good. Then you can come home with us. Mother said you are family now. You can live with us and never work in the cargo bay again." Looked at, "I cannot just leave my life behind. I have responsibilities. I have a sister back on Earth who needs money for her studies." "I know about your sister," said. "I have already arranged for her education to be fully paid. The best medical schools on Earth have offered her positions. She will want for nothing." Stared at her. "You did what?" "I told you. You saved my daughter. There is nothing I would not do for you in return." Stood and walked to the window. "But the life bond is about more than gratitude. It is about connection, about family." She turned to face him. "My husband died many years ago. Lyra has no father, no siblings, no extended family nearby. We are alone in many ways despite our wealth and power. What I am offering you is not charity, Park. It is belonging." Lyra grabs hand. "Please say yes," she whispered. "I do not want you to go away. You protected me when no one else would. You bled for me. You almost died for me. Please stay with us. Please be my family." Looked at her small blue hand holding his rough human one. He thought about his empty apartment on the station. He thought about his lonely dinners and tired nights. He thought about waking up every day with no one to care if he lived or died. Then he thought about this strange, wonderful child who had decided to love him. This powerful, ancient woman who had decided to claim him. This impossible situation that made no sense at all. "I do not know how to be part of a family," he said quietly. "My parents died when I was young. I have only ever had my sister. I do not know how to be what you need." Walked over and placed her hand on his cheek. Her touch was gentle and warm. "You do not need to be anything other than what you are, a man who protects, a man who endures, a man who stands when others fall." She looked into his eyes, and he felt like she could see every part of him, every fear and every hope and every hidden dream. "You do not need to learn how to be family, Park. You already are." Lyra squeezed his hand. "Please." Froze. "What did you call me?" The little girl smiled shyly. "You taught me that word last week. It means father in your language. Is that okay? Can I call you that?" Something broke inside, something hard and cold that he had carried for so many years. Tears spilled from his eyes before he could stop them. He had not cried since his parents' funeral. He had not let himself feel anything so deeply. But now, holding this small blue hand, looking at this child who wanted him, hearing that word that he never thought he would hear anyone call him, he could not hold back anymore. "Yes," he whispered through his tears, "you can call me that." Lyra threw her arms around him carefully, placed her hand on both of their heads, blessing them with her touch. And in that quiet medical room, far from Earth, far from everything he had ever known, Park found his family. 3 years passed like water flowing through open hands, fast, beautiful, gone before you knew to hold on. No longer worked in cargo bays. He no longer woke up before dawn to haul heavy containers. He no longer went to sleep exhausted and alone in a tiny apartment that smelled like metal and recycled air. Now he lived on a world called Prime. The sky was purple and filled with 3 moons that painted everything in silver light. The house was large and beautiful, made of crystal and light, sitting on a hill that overlooked an ocean that glowed with bioluminescent life. It still did not feel real sometimes. He would wake up in his comfortable bed and wonder if he was dreaming. Then Lyra would burst through his door demanding breakfast, and he would know this was real. This was his life now. The little girl was not so little anymore. She had grown taller, reaching his shoulder now. Her telepathic abilities had blossomed under his guidance. She could sense emotions, read surface thoughts, and project feelings across vast distances. She was becoming powerful, just like her mother. But she was still his Lyra, still the child who held his hand when she was scared, still the girl who laughed at his bad jokes and demanded he tell her stories about Earth, still the daughter he never expected to have. His body had healed mostly. The best doctors in the core systems had worked on him for months. They fixed his broken bones and repaired his damaged organs and put him back together piece by piece. But some scars remained. His left arm ached when the weather changed. His ribs sometimes hurt when he breathed too deeply. His left eye was slightly weaker than his right, and he walked with a small limp when he was tired. The doctors said these were permanent marks, reminders of that night in Cargo Bay 7. Did not mind. Every scar was proof that he had protected someone who needed him. Every ache was a reminder that he had refused to fall. Had given him a position in her household. Not a servant, not an employee. He was her advisor, her confidant, her partner in all things except name. In a world of politics and schemes and hidden dangers, was the one person she trusted completely. He could not lie. He did not know how. When he spoke truth, and in the complicated world of politics, that made him invaluable. Ambassadors and diplomats learned quickly that they could not deceive when was watching. He saw through their false smiles and empty promises. But more than that, he simply cared. About Lyra, about this strange family he had stumbled into. He worried about them when they were away. He celebrated their victories and shared their sorrows. He was present in a way that transcended duty or obligation. He loved them. It had taken him time to admit it, even to himself. But he loved them with everything he had. His sister had graduated from medical school at the top of her class. She worked at the best hospital in Seoul now, saving lives every day. They talked often through communication channels that spanned the stars. She cried when he told her he had found a family. She said their parents would be proud. The galaxy still underestimated humans. Other species still saw them as weak and brief and insignificant. 50 years was nothing in galactic terms. Humans were still newcomers, still proving themselves, still fighting for respect. But stories spread. Stories of a human cargo hauler who had stood against 3 enforcers to protect a child he did not know. Stories of a man who had been beaten nearly to death and refused to fall. Stories of a species that did not know the meaning of surrender. Other humans heard these stories and stood a little taller. Other species heard these stories and looked at humans with new eyes. Maybe the soft skins were not so weak after all. Maybe there was something inside them that could not be measured by muscle or claw or scale. On the anniversary of that night in Cargo Bay 7, found on the balcony outside his room, he was watching the 3 moons rise over the glowing ocean. The silver light painted everything in soft colors, making the world look like a dream. She stood beside him silently. They were comfortable in silence now, after 3 years. They did not need words to understand each other. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. Thought about the question. He thought about the pain he had endured, the bones that had broken, the blood he had lost, the months of healing that had felt endless. Then he thought about Lyra calling him every morning. He thought about his hand finding his during difficult meetings. He thought about this home, this life, this family that had become his own. "Not for a second," he said. Smiled. It was the full smile that she rarely showed anyone, bright and warm and beautiful. "Good," she said. She reached over and took his hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, cool and soft against his rough skin. "Because we are keeping you forever." Laughed quietly. "I know you keep reminding me." "Because you need reminding." She stepped closer, resting her head against his shoulder. "You still sometimes look around like you expect this to disappear, like you expect to wake up back in that cargo bay." He could not deny it. Some part of him still could not believe his luck, still could not accept that he deserved this happiness. "I was nobody," he said softly. "I am still nobody, just a man who got beaten up trying to do the right thing." Lifted her head and looked at him with those ancient silver eyes. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "You are Park, the man who stood, the man who endured, the man who showed the galaxy what humans truly are." She touched his cheek gently. "You are the father of my daughter, the keeper of my heart, the most stubborn, impossible, wonderful being I have ever known." Behind them, the door opened. Lyra ran out onto the balcony, her silver eyes shining with excitement. "Mother, the stars are falling. Come look, come look." She grabbed both their hands and pulled them toward the railing. Above them, the night sky was filled with streaks of light. A meteor shower, painting the purple heavens with silver fire. Stood between his daughter and the woman he loved, watching the stars fall. He thought about the path that had brought him here. The pain, the fear, the choice to stand when standing seemed impossible. He would do it all again, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times for them. Lyra squeezed his hand and pointed at a particularly bright streak of light. "Make a wish." Smiled and closed his eyes, but he had no wish to make. Everything he wanted was already here, holding his hands, filling his life with light. He was home. He was loved. He was theirs. Forever.